He was the richest man on earth. The founder of Amazon, the company that redefined how the world shops, reads, and even speaks, thanks to Alexa. His name was etched into the DNA of the digital age. But then, a single tabloid headline brought it all crashing down. In January 2019, the National Enquirer published a scandal that stunned the planet. Jeff Bezos was having an affair. And not just any affair, it came with leaked private texts, late-night rendezvous, and a betrayal that would lead to the most expensive divorce in human history. The number? $38 billion. Gone. Handed over to Mackenzie Scott, the woman who had been by his side since the first days of Amazon, when they packed boxes in a Seattle garage. But the headlines didn't stop at the money. There were accusations of blackmail, tabloid extortion, connections to foreign governments, even claims that his own phone was hacked by a Saudi prince. It was a perfect storm, a tech titan, a media scandal, a marriage torn apart, and a mistress, Lauren Sanchez, who would go on to become his new partner, public companion, and eventually fiancé. And while the public gawked at the affair, the private transformation was even more shocking. Bezos changed. He traded the quiet CEO image for a shredded physique, designer suits, and super yacht parties. He stepped down from Amazon, dove headfirst into Blue Origin, and began publicly competing with Elon Musk in a billionaire space race. Some say the divorce broke him. Others say it freed him. But the question remains, how did the world's richest man, so calculated, so controlled, let it all unravel in a storm of texts, tabloids, and a $38 billion goodbye? They once stood at the very top, but what happened next? Join the Hidden Billionaires to uncover their story. Long before Jeff Bezos became the king of e-commerce and the architect of Amazon, he was just a quiet, intensely curious boy named Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen. Born in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1964, Jeff never knew his biological father. His mother, Jacqueline, was just 17 when she gave birth to him. She divorced his father within a year. Jeff has described his biological dad only once, in a brief interview, saying, "I've never met him. He doesn't know who I am." At age 4, Jeff's life changed when his mother married Miguel Mike Bezos, a Cuban immigrant who had fled Castro's regime. Mike adopted Jeff and gave him the last name that would one day appear on Forbes's billionaires list and the sides of millions of cardboard boxes. From an early age, Bezos showed signs of obsessive focus and towering ambition. As a toddler, he dismantled his crib with a screwdriver. By high school, he had turned his parents' garage into a makeshift laboratory, building gadgets, and even installing an alarm system to keep his siblings out. His grandfather, who worked at NASA and the Atomic Energy Commission, became a key influence. Summers spent on his ranch taught Jeff hard work, self-reliance, and instilled a love for space that would echo decades later in his Blue Origin rockets. He was valedictorian of his high school, a National Merit Scholar, and a student who always saw the world through systems, how to build them, break them, or optimize them. After graduating from Princeton University with degrees in electrical engineering and computer science, Jeff had every opportunity laid before him. He could have become a tenured professor, a corporate executive, a Wall Street quant, and for a while he did just that. He worked at D.E. Shaw, one of the most elite hedge funds in New York. But in 1994, everything changed. He read a statistic that internet usage was growing 2,300% per year. It struck him like lightning. He couldn't let go, so he made a radical decision. He walked away from his lucrative finance job, packed up a car with his wife, Mackenzie, and drove across the country to Seattle. In the passenger seat, Mackenzie drove. In the back seat, Jeff plotted out a company that would sell books online, the first spark of what would become Amazon. He wrote the business plan on the road. He pitched it from rented offices. He launched the company in his garage. And standing right beside him every step of the way, coding, brainstorming, mailing out packages, was Mackenzie Bezos. She wasn't just his wife. She was his co-founder, his believer, his quiet anchor. They were partners in marriage, in business, in life. And no one, not even Jeff, could have predicted that one day, decades later, it would all come crashing down in scandal and cost him $38 billion. In 1994, Jeff Bezos was a man with a vision, a borrowed desk, and a dream bigger than most could imagine. His idea was simple: sell books online, but his execution was revolutionary. He named his company Amazon after the largest river in the world, a symbol of scale and dominance. And in that cramped Seattle garage, with wires hanging from the ceiling and a spray-painted company logo on the wall, Bezos began building the most powerful marketplace in history. At first, investors laughed. Online books? Who would trust a credit card on the internet? But Jeff was relentless. He believed in scale, in speed, in customer obsession. While other CEOs thought quarterly profits, Bezos thought in decades. He reinvested every penny, hired ruthlessly, and pushed his team to the brink. In 1997, Amazon went public. By the early 2002, it had expanded into electronics, toys, clothing, and eventually everything. Even as the dot-com bubble burst and companies collapsed around him, Bezos held the line. His business model wasn't flashy, but it was built for endurance. He told investors to ignore profits because he was building the future. Then came the masterstroke. In 2005, Amazon launched Prime, a subscription service offering free 2-day shipping. It was bold, it was expensive, and it changed everything. Prime didn't just retain customers. It hooked them, turning casual shoppers into loyal members. Then came Kindle. Then Amazon Web Services, AWS, a quiet, behind-the-scenes division that would eventually generate more profit than all of Amazon's retail operations combined. By the mid-2010 Amazon had become the backbone of the internet. It stored websites, delivered groceries, sold movies, powered Alexa, and even helped NASA process data. Bezos had built an empire of everything. In 2017, he surpassed Bill Gates to become the richest man alive. Media outlets praised his genius. Economists studied his efficiency. Silicon Valley bowed to his systems thinking. But not everyone celebrated. Behind the scenes, Amazon workers spoke of brutal conditions, timed bathroom breaks, warehouse injuries, union busting. Bezos was both hailed as a visionary and condemned as a corporate tyrant. Still, he kept expanding. He bought the Washington Post, promising editorial freedom but stirring political tension. He poured billions into Blue Origin, determined to fulfill his childhood dream, putting humanity in space. And while the world watched him reshape industries, one woman watched in silence. Mackenzie Bezos. She had stood beside him from day one, through garage days, IPOs, and meteoric rise. But as Jeff became a global figure, fit, polished, photographed on yachts with celebrities, something began to crack. He had transformed into more than a CEO. He was now a symbol of wealth, ambition, disruption. But symbols, like empires, are often hollow inside. And in 2019, everything would come undone. Not in a boardroom, not on the stock exchange, but in a tabloid exposes laced with leaked texts, scandalous photos, and the headline that shook the world: Jeff Bezos has been having an affair. In January 2019, the world stopped. The National Enquirer, a tabloid known for sensationalism, dropped a bombshell. Jeff Bezos, the richest man on earth, was having an affair with former news anchor and helicopter pilot Lauren Sanchez. But this wasn't just celebrity gossip. It came with intimate text messages, steamy photos, and explosive allegations of blackmail and extortion. The affair itself was already shocking. Bezos was still married to Mackenzie, the woman who helped build Amazon from scratch. They had 4 children, a 5-year-long marriage, a quiet intellectual partnership. But now, the image of the rational, disciplined billionaire was shattered by something deeply human: desire. And worse, someone had leaked his private messages. Bezos launched a private investigation, determined to uncover how his personal texts ended up in the hands of a tabloid. Then came the twist that made this story international news. Jeff accused American Media Inc., the Enquirer's parent company, of blackmailing him. He said they threatened to release DCA pics unless he stopped investigating. Bezos didn't comply. Instead, he published the blackmail emails himself in a public blog post titled, "No Thank You, Mr. Pecker." It was one of the boldest moves in modern corporate history. A billionaire airing his own dirty laundry just to expose the machine trying to manipulate him. But the scandal came at a price. Just a day before the story broke, Jeff and Mackenzie had quietly announced their divorce. The settlement? $38 billion. Mackenzie walked away with 4% of Amazon stock, instantly making her one of the richest women in the world. She later gave away billions to charity, quietly, gracefully. She became everything Jeff wasn't in that moment. Meanwhile, Bezos went full metamorphosis. He got ripped, started wearing tight t-shirts, leather jackets, sunglasses at night. He was seen vacationing on super yachts, schmoozing with Leonardo DiCaprio, partying with billionaires. To some, he was entering his Bond villain era. To others, he looked like a man finally unleashed. But critics didn't miss the irony. The man who had built Amazon on principles of discipline, logic, and long-term thinking had let it all unravel over a love affair and a tabloid leak. Employees were stunned. Investors raised eyebrows. Friends disappeared. But Bezos, ever the tactician, rebranded. He stepped down as Amazon's CEO in 2021, handed over the reins to Andy Jassy, and turned his full attention to Blue Origin, philanthropy, and his new public relationship with Lauren Sanchez. But behind the yachts, the parties, the memes, there was a quiet truth. Bezos had traded one empire for another. He lost a marriage. He lost part of his reputation. He lost 38 billion. And though he gained a new life, a new love, and a new mission, there's still one question no one can quite answer. Was it worth it? After the scandal, the divorce, and the very public fall from marital grace, most men would have disappeared from the spotlight. But Jeff Bezos? He did the opposite. He reinvented himself. He became a global tabloid fascination, not just as a billionaire, but as a man in transformation, a man in midlife rebirth. He was no longer the awkward tech nerd in khakis. He was now tanned, muscular, wearing designer suits and custom boots, flying around the world with his new partner, Lauren Sanchez, who quickly stepped into the public eye as his constant companion. The couple began appearing on red carpets, dining with celebrities, and vacationing with royalty. Bezos purchased the mega yacht Kourou, worth $500 million, complete with a support yacht just for his helicopter. His Instagram went from book recommendations to beach selfies, and the man who once shied from cameras embraced the flash. But beneath the new image, a deeper question lingered. Had Jeff Bezos found peace, or was he just running faster than ever? In 2021, he made his most symbolic move yet. He stepped down as CEO of Amazon, the empire he built from scratch, and became its executive chairman. The reason, he said, was to focus on day one thinking again, the raw energy of innovation. In truth, Bezos had his sights set on space. With Blue Origin, his private aerospace company, he launched himself, quite literally, into orbit. On the 20th of July, 2021, he boarded the New Shepard rocket and blasted beyond the atmosphere, fulfilling a childhood dream. It was part triumph, part theater. The world watched, some with awe, others with scorn, as the richest man alive flew into space, while Amazon warehouse workers back on Earth protested for better wages. Public sentiment grew divided. Bezos had become the face of billionaire excess. His philanthropic efforts were frequently criticized for being too little, too late, especially compared to ex-wife Mackenzie Scott, who gave away over $14 billion in just a few years. Yet Bezos tried to pivot. He launched the Bezos Earth Fund, committing $10 billion to fight climate change. He pledged support for early education, space innovation, and infrastructure reform. Still, the public seemed less impressed by his money and more fascinated by his metamorphosis. Was he happy now? Was he building a new kind of life, or just a flashier version of the old one? He and Lauren got engaged in 2023 aboard the yacht Kourou, The diamond ring made headlines. So did the rumors of prenups, power dynamics, and whether Bezos would ever marry again. But unlike his first marriage, built quietly in the trenches of startup life, this one played out in full view. Paparazzi, lavish parties, public kisses, and yet there were no more children. No attempt to rebuild a traditional family. Just a man, no longer tethered to the past, soaring into something new, a rocket man. A divorcé, a king without a crown, but with all the gold. For all the headlines, scandals, and space flights, Jeff Bezos has always been a father. But unlike his businesses, his family life remains largely off the record. Jeff and Mackenzie have 4 children together, 3 sons and 1 adopted daughter from China. Their names and faces are intentionally kept out of the public eye, protected from the media frenzy surrounding their father. Bezos once said, in a rare interview, "If I had one thing to be proud of, it wouldn't be Amazon, it would be being a good father." But what does that look like when you're running a trillion-dollar empire? Friends say Jeff was surprisingly hands-on, attending school events, cooking breakfast, even doing diaper duty in the early years. But as Amazon ballooned and the spotlight intensified, so too did the distance. Unlike Elon Musk, Bezos never positioned his children as inheritors of civilization. There's no clear plan to pass on Amazon, Blue Origin, or the Washington Post to his kids. No public grooming of a successor. No boardroom handshakes between father and heir. Instead, Jeff seems to want to give his children something quieter, normalcy. After the divorce, it's reported that Bezos and Mackenzie agreed to shared parenting responsibilities, and so far, no public feuds or legal battles have emerged between them, a rare feat in billionaire separations. But what about Lauren Sanchez, his fiancée? Lauren has 3 children of her own from previous relationships. Since becoming Bezos's partner, she's taken a more public role, appearing at Amazon events, traveling on Blue Origin missions, and even giving interviews about their life together. In many ways, she represents the new phase of Bezos's personal life, high profile, curated, cosmopolitan. Together, they've blended their families. Paparazzi have captured them on vacations with all the kids, skiing in Aspen, lounging in St. Bart's, dining in Malibu, but it's not clear how deep or integrated those family ties are. And then there's the legacy question. What will Jeff Bezos leave behind? He has signed the Giving Pledge, committing to donate the majority of his wealth during his lifetime. He's funneled billions into the Bezos Earth Fund. He's invested in longevity research, space colonization, and AI. But there's no Bezos Foundation in the mold of the Gates Foundation. No public blueprint for how his wealth will shape the world after he's gone. And while Mackenzie Scott has rapidly become one of the most generous philanthropists in history, Bezos has been more measured and more scrutinized. His children, still young and intentionally private, have not taken on any public roles in business, politics, or culture. There are no Harvard speeches, no interviews, no business ventures. They live as best they can in the shadow of a man who reshaped the world and then rebuilt himself under even greater pressure. One day, they may emerge. One day, they may step into his legacy, or they may walk their own path, far from Silicon Valley, far from rockets, far from the ghost of Amazon. Because in the end, Jeff Bezos may have built the most powerful company on earth, but when it comes to family, the legacy remains unwritten. When future historians write about the 21st century, Jeff Bezos will appear in bold. He didn't just build a company, he rewired capitalism. Before Bezos, online shopping was a novelty. After Bezos, it was the new default. Amazon didn't just deliver packages, it delivered a new way of living. Frictionless, fast, addictive. One-click ordering, same-day delivery. Alexa, play music, buy groceries, control the house. He created an ecosystem, not a store. Amazon Web Services, the cloud arm of his empire, became the backbone of the internet, powering Netflix, NASA, and even the CIA. He didn't just sell things, he made sure everything sold online went through him. But Bezos's legacy is a tale of two extremes. On one side, the visionary, he revolutionized e-commerce, cloud computing, publishing, and even logistics. He redefined what it meant to scale. He taught companies how to think 10 years ahead instead of chasing quarterly profits. He transformed the Washington Post, giving it digital life in an era of dying newspapers. He launched Blue Origin, hoping to make space travel not just possible but commercial. And he made customer obsession a corporate religion. In business schools, his leadership style is studied like scripture. In boardrooms, his strategies are copied religiously. On the other side, the controversy. He has been called the poster child of inequality. While Amazon stock soared, warehouse workers spoke of exhaustion, surveillance, and unsafe conditions. While he launched himself into space, his employees protested on the ground for a $15 minimum wage. Bezos's fortune at one point grew by $13 million an hour during the pandemic, while frontline workers struggled for paid sick leave. Critics say he gamed the tax system, dodged regulation, and expanded his monopoly unchecked. And yet, the man behind all this remains curiously private. He rarely speaks publicly, rarely shows emotion, rarely explains himself. Unlike Steve Jobs, who left behind a design philosophy, unlike Elon Musk, who lives out loud on Twitter, Bezos's legacy is more like a machine, efficient, precise, profitable, and cold. But machines don't cry. Machines don't divorce. Machines don't fall in love, get blackmailed, or lose $38 billion in a single week. And that's where Jeff Bezos becomes human again. He was the man who won capitalism, pris, headed KDS Qualsend, but lost something personal along the way. And now, even with his new life, his new love, his rockets and his yachts, the question remains, will Jeff Bezos be remembered as the greatest builder of the digital age, or as the lonely king of a hollow empire